Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here. This is the AutoSys Roadmap. My name is Bob Schwartz. We want to provide content that you can take and make decisions and implementations based on that content. Our goal too is we're going to continue to do these things as you all provide us feedback on what kind of content you want to see to be able to understand what you all want to see in these webinars. I think it's probably best to establish a little bit of credibility. And so you can see in this slide, we've been around for many, many years. I think 25 plus years. We have a ton of combined experience. I think the biggest thing is on the bottom left, you'll see 1,500 engagements, 775 upgrades, 150 conversions. Collective, I've never added it up, but it's probably hundreds of years. A lot of stuff that Bob Lusheen is going to talk about a little bit, that I'll talk about. That's based on our feedback from you all. We've worked with a lot of you that have been on here. We just figured that we wanted to establish a little credibility that yes, we're out there in the trenches. We're learning a lot about what folks should and shouldn't do. And so he's going to talk about the roadmap. I'm going to talk a little bit about ACE, and then also Parker's going to do a demo. Without further ado, Bob, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to give you the Michael Woods preface here in that this is the information being provided today could and probably will change at any time. These are plans that they're looking at for the future of the product, but those plans can change, gears can shift. Definitely the direction they're going in is set, but some of the details may or may not change. So just wanted to preface that. We'll start off by going through what was delivered in 24.1, a few of the things. So there was some security agent communication enhancements. So today, your agents communicate to the application servers across an IP port. They communicate just TCP/IP across the network to each other. Now there's an option for HTTPS communication, meaning that to the agent, the app server is a URL, and to the app server, the agent is a URL, and that's the way they talk to each other. And it's using HTTPS, so you secure it with SSL certs. And a lot of the things that you're going to see presented today are setups for containerization. And so it'll start to make more sense why they're doing this. When you're talking inside of a container, you can generally get there through web communications, but you may not be able to get there by a network communication. So that was included in the product, and it works really well. I have it set up in a lab. It works wonderfully. Enhanced security. So they added some security around the web UI, the web server, some more enhancements to EAM, and they delivered a little bit of user interface modernization. In anybody that's seen a demo of 24.1, or if you have it in your environment, a lot of the WCC pages are different than what they were from 11.3 and 12.0. One of the things they delivered with 24.1 is custom banner. So you now have the ability in the 11.3 and on stages, we were able to go in and modify the text across the top of the WCC page, able to modify the background color of the WCC page and the login page. Now, but it was difficult to do. You had to go into cascading style sheets and change fonts and colors. You had to go into cache files for the Tomcat server and actually make physical changes in there of text. Now that's all changed. Through the configuration tab in the WCC, you can now put a company logo. You can label your WCC. So if you have development, production, QA, you can label those. You can change the background color now in the configuration tab very simply and easily. And they did that because some customers were using it. If you have a large environment and a lot of users, one of the ways the users can differentiate which environment they're in is on the background color when they log in. They know their dev is blue, QA is orange, and production is red, whatever the colors may be. And the other thing that they added was additional cloud service job types. My next slide here is going to show all of the plugins for the different job types that are available today out of the box. This is current up to 24.1. So you can see that they've added a lot of direct plugins where you don't have to script or use an adapter, but the job type will talk directly to these products. Now we're going to talk about the future. So the next few slides that we're going to talk about are items that are planned. 24.2 is supposed to come out First quarter-ish, end of first quarter next year is the planned date. Of course, it could slip, it could be earlier, but the plan is first quarter of next year. And then R26 will be delivered in 2026. So what we're talking about now is code that's going to be delivered from R24 through R26. They deliver as much as they can in the next release, and if they can't deliver it, they put it off to the next one. So I can't say to you, in R24.2, these will be the features. That's undecided at this point. I think they have a really good idea, but they're not broadcasting it. But the things that we're going to talk about will be in the next few versions of AutoSys. So one of the things will be pass through, the ability to pass the output from a job to another job. This output that can be passed will be dependent on the job type. So I'm just going to give you an example, and I don't even know if it's really a valid example, but let's just say you had a command job that was putting output. To be able to grab that output from your command job and pass it on to the next job. That's the kind of things that we're talking about here. So you can kind of chain your jobs together with data from the previous job. Infrastructure event management. So today we generate alarms but they're job alarms, they're job failures, max run alarms. When those alarms are triggered, we have the ability today to send emails on those alarms or open a ticket into a ticketing system. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with 24.1. I want to back up about ticketing. But we don't have the ability, if the event daemon log gets an Oracle error, for example, we don't have the ability today to alarm on that. You would have to be scraping that log and looking for certain error types in order to alarm on it. That's going to be added into the product that we'll be able to alarm observability type alarms for critical events. That's planned to come into the product. On ticketing, let's go back and talk a little bit. 24.1, one of the things they delivered with 24.1 was not only ServiceNow integration, but that came in 24.0. But in 24.1, you have the ability to actually call a script. So what that means is you can interface with any ticketing system. If your ticketing system has a REST API, as an example, that will allow you to create a ticket in that system, you can create a script. AutoSys job variables will be passed into the script, the job name, the run number, the error, a lot of the instance name will be passed into the script as a variable. And then you can make a REST service call to generate a ticket to a system outside of ServiceNow. It does ServiceNow natively out of the box, but it can be scripted to interface with other systems. They're doing a bunch of more UI modernizations going forward. And a lot of these modernizations are focused toward the ability to do containerization in the application. We're going to talk more about that. But the first thing that they're going to work on adding is what they call operator personas. So these would be features that an operator would use. For example, the ability to create security profiles. Today, you have to do that in AutoSys Secure. Email templates. Today, you have to do a template and import it. You have to do it in your favorite text editor and import it. ServiceNow templates, the same way. You have to do it in an editor and import it in using Jill. And AutoSys Secure, you have to use AutoSys Secure from the command line. Going forward, those are going to be part of the GUI interface. The web UI I don't know if it'll be in the configuration page, but I'm sure that you'll have to have access rights that allow you to use these utilities in the EAM, but you're going to be able to create all of these things in the user interface. So that's kind of a big one going forward. And the reason is if you think about it, when you do containers, if they were to put AutoSys inside of a container, you're not going to have command line access to these utilities. So they've got to have a way to broadcast those so that you can interface with them. Now we'll talk a little bit about containerization. The plan is to go to containerization with both the agent and eventually the infrastructure. So your scheduler would be in a container. It'll allow to ensure that your environments are identical because you can just deploy containers with a configuration file that configures that environment, the instance name, the identification of that container. It'll allow for faster upgrades because they will just drop you a container file that you'll drop in on your existing container and it'll automatically upgrade the code. So you'll have shorter downtimes when it's time to do upgrades and fixes. Higher availability. If a container goes down, you have the ability to spin up new containers automatically. So deployment becomes a lot easier in a containered environment. Once you get one container set, you can deploy it as a development and a QA container. That's planned going forward. Reasons for the containerized environment. Serverless and automation experience. Reduce your total cost of ownership. You're not supporting a bunch of servers. You're supporting a server that can run containers. So you get a smaller footprint, less maintenance, and you can scale down the footprint in your data center. So scalable performance. If your environment starts to load up, another container can automatically be spun up or spun down as load decreases. So during your busy seasons, when you may run a lot, if you run a lot of year-end jobs, maybe you spin up another container for more load. App team ease of use. When you're creating jobs, the location of the agent doesn't become, you're not dependent on the location of the agent. You're just going to point it to an agent and it's going to run wherever it needs to. The container will know what agents have what plugins and what resources available to them. Scalable agents. So you can have a farm of agents that can spin up or down in AWS or one of the cloud services. And you don't have to be worried about machine configuration of an agent. It's now just an agent in the environment. You don't know where it is. You don't care where it is. It has the ability to run your jobs. That's the direction that they're heading. So I think we already talked about the event management stuff, the ability to report on critical alarms, Kubernetes database instance. So it's very possible that instead of using Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, Sybase, Postgres, you can use a Kubernetes database in your container. Scalable agents. So we kind of already talked about that. You can have a farm of agents out there. So we talked about the new ability in 24.1 to have HTTPS agents talking to your app server. Now in the future, they're going to have a TLS client. So when you install a client on a box, it'll talk to the app server through HTTPS and back and vice versa. So they're talking about expanding that. And again, this is all set up for containerization. Additional password vault support. So HashiCorp is one of the vaults that they're talking about adding in the near future. Virtual agent. The scheduler would know with a virtual agent what agent has plugins. So you just schedule your job to run and AutoSys picks the agent for you that has the most capacity and has the plugins that you need to be able to run your job. That supports serverless job execution. You're not supporting a job on a server somewhere. You're running a job in a container somewhere. So job orchestration, they're talking about making variables that can get resolved at runtime that can be passed to another job. So kind of like a global variable, but a passable date variable. So if you had a file date timestamp that you were looking for and it came in and you needed to pass the date timestamp of that file to another app for processing, you could have date variable dependent information being passed between jobs. Helper variables, not only output from jobs, but pass a job name from one job to another. Maybe you have a job that can remediate job failures, but how do you do that? Because you'd have to have one for every job. Unless you had a generic one, then the job name and the run ID got passed into it. You could use that to remediate issues in your environment. There's lots of different ways that you could use these variables. So they're talking about making it more flexible to have the ability to pass information between jobs. AI powered job remediation and help. For the help part of it, if you would say to it, I want to create a command job running this command to run on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 2 a.m., and I want my log locations to be this, and the AI would actually write the JIL for you. That's where they're heading with this. They're going to make this so that you can use a private LLM so that the data stays within your company's data center and you would build your data set based on that. And they may feed you data to put into your online help files that we have today, maybe fed into a base LLM that you could use privately. Job remediation. So your local could learn how to remediate certain jobs, and you could use AI to do that. They're building that into the product. So today, even in 24.0 and 24.1, there is an AI bot. If you ask it, how do I create a command job? It won't do it for you, but it'll list you step by step all the instructions that you need to do to create a command job. So this is a technology that they're building on today. Modernized application editor. I think you all know what the job tree in the event daemon, if you look, not an the event daemon, if you look at the view page for a job, you can see the chain of the jobs that are going to run within a job stream. What they're talking about doing is making an editor where you have a palette of information. So you have a palette that has a command job in it. You drag and drop it out onto a work area, and then you tell it what machine you want to run it on, what command you want it to run, and then you want to put it in a box. So you grab a box out of the palette and you drag it onto the workbench and you interconnect them. And then you can have decision trees or decision trees that are dragged and dropped, and you can build a job stream in a palette, in a workbench, and then you export it into or deploy it from the workbench. So more modern tools for job creation, more point and click tools. They want to add some version controlling into it where they track the versions of a job so that you can roll that job back. And they want to tie that version control internally to allow you to enter a change request number into that version, so that if in your version control, you can see what change the job was updated in. And if you need to roll it back, you can refer to that change. Job orchestration templating. They want to make it so today, if you had 50 jobs and the machine that they run on is changing and you're not using a virtual machine, you would have to go into all 50 of those jobs and change the machine. They want to make it so that you can do template matching. You can take all jobs that match this naming standard and change the machine from this to this, and it automatically does it on all 50 jobs. So those are some of the things that are coming up to version 26. And then the last slide that I have here, we're just going to look at the bottom of this job, and there's going to be more version control and job orchestration features coming in 26, past 26. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. A couple things. A small repeat of the disclaimer that Bob mentioned. Broadcom reserves the right to be able to change what their future roadmap looks like or what they're implementing in this and that. So I wanted to make sure that we let everybody know that's subject to change. Instead of me telling you what ACE is, and oh, by the way, there's folks on this particular call, on this webinar that have ACE. Some of you are interested in ACE. The reason we're doing ACE on this is because a couple folks on the last webinar we did said, hey, I would really like to see a little teaser on ACE. And so that's what you're really gonna get here. So instead of me telling you what ACE is, I'm gonna let somebody with a much better voice that's going to articulate exactly what ACE is in a very short period of time. And then I'll go through a couple slides to just further illustrate the meaning and point.
AutoSys changes have been crushing spirits and killing momentum since forever. Getting a new job to prod takes 3 approvals, a personal favor, and maybe a prayer, while executions spiral out of control with no way to monitor or contain them. The environment keeps growing, and headcount doesn't. There's a better way. ACE is a self-service lifecycle tool for AutoSys. It handles every stage of change and automatically updates and validates changes before promotion. No back and forth, no guesswork, no burnout. ACE makes change easy. Open a request, add jobs and attributes. Auto-validate. Pick immediate or scheduled migration, review, and migrate jobs and code in one click. ACE gets code to production faster, and some of our clients have cut job failures in half. Our job execution dashboard gives you workload visibility to predict TCO. And when you need to clean house, ACE performs health checks to identify unwanted data in any environment. Need proof? ACE tracks chargebacks and runs audits through SQL Server reporting services. And yes, it plays nice with Jenkins, ServiceNow, and the rest of your ecosystem. Want to see it in action? Reach out for a demo today.
So hopefully that provided you with enough feedback or information about what ACE can do. So a couple slides I'm going to really quick go through before I turn it over to Parker, who's going to walk through those same pieces in action. So you heard it on the video. There's a number of different things that it does. It talked about integration. So what we've done, we had a lot of feedback from folks that said, I really want to be able to migrate my AutoSys changes at the same time as I do my code. And what we're finding is that the code is ready to go, but we're waiting on the AutoSys changes. And so we have the ability to integrate, as you heard on the video, with Jenkins and Jira and so forth. So you can actually do one-click migration to migrate the AutoSys jobs as well as your code at the same time. The other thing that you see here is rapid migration. So one of the ways in which, some of you put on the previous poll, man, I wish I could learn more about the actual integrations. Some of that, I didn't get into that, but some of that might be due to the amount of time you have available to be able to do that. And so the great part about ACE is it can do rapid migrations in seconds. The only thing that would ever take a little more time is the approvals. So if folks are ready to approve the change, ACE will provide you with everything you need to make a good informed decision on that change. You just simply have to click the approve button and let ACE do the rest. Visibility, so there's visibility in change, there's visibility in runs, there's visibility in executions. We give you a real good dashboard. We give you all the information you would ever need in order to see what's going on in your environment. And then the last one is standardization. Now, I will say there's 4 on the screen, but there's probably 40 that we could actually talk about today. We picked the ones that resonate the most typically, and that's what we're going over. So standardization, the really great part about that is the bigger the shop, the more of a need they even have for standardization. And so some of the shops I've worked with have 5 different ways of making change, and they put it down to the actual application layer to come up with a way to do that. That's how they get from 1 to 5. The idea is bring them together, put them in one standardized solution to do change. And that's really what ACE can do for you. The next slide is important because it's what Parker's going to go through for you all today. So migration, effectively, this is a solution that will take your changes and migrate them through the environments and into production. It doesn't matter if you have only 1, right? We can do migrations within the same instance. It doesn't matter if you have 4. We can do the migrations. We make it all automated as much as you can automate. We give you reporting, as I alluded to earlier, so we can track all your changes, the approvals, job activity, executions, you name it, we do reporting on it. And we also have dashboards that can provide you everything that you need to be able to see holistically from the environment or even specifically for an application. So for example, if an application has certain number of job changes in your environment, but they represent a lot more of the failures, that's obviously something you'd want to know so that you can go back to that team and say, it looks like we need to get you some training on AutoSys. That's something that ACE provides right out of the box. Same thing with executions and so forth. And then the standards, as I mentioned, I just talked a little bit about that, so I won't really get into that, but we have what we call a validation engine. And the validation engine has all the different things that you would want to validate standards-wise in your environment. You just pick and choose the ones you want to validate, and then you let ACE uphold that. And so we'll show you that as well. And then the last one is the health checks. So this came from a number of years ago when we were really good at stopping the garbage coming into the environment with ACE. What they said to us is, I have some garbage in my environment. How can I get rid of it? And so that's where the health checks were born, is we said, all right, we need to look at what's already there and provide good informed information to everybody on what they can do with that to help keep it cleaner, more efficient, and optimized. And that's what the health checks are. What you see here is we do a number of different things. We do a whiteboard session, which essentially says, if you want to see what ACE looks like in your environment, first tell us how you do change today. Then we'll show you what it would look like with ACE hypothetically based on what we know tomorrow. So what you see here is a typical change process from an actual environment. We got all their information. You can see that there's 21 different steps to make their change. And we won't have you look at all of this detail. We're just saying this was actually from an environment. So we took them from 21 steps all the way down to, looks like 9 different steps. A couple of them we can't change. Like we can't really automate the actual onset of a request, right? You're never going to automate that. But whatever we could automate, we did. And it was a 67% reduction, which actually is one of the lower ones. We get all the way up to 90% automation in a lot of environments. So anyway, just wanted to show you that. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Parker. This is a teaser demo, meaning it's short and it's sweet, but we have no problem showing you the more lengthy demo, which typically takes about an hour. If you have more interest, then feel free to reach out to us, put it in the chat, email us directly. You'll see on the bottom of the screen.
Hey everyone, I'm Parker here, a consultant at RMT. As Bob noted, we don't have a whole lot of time, and I'm sure we're all thinking about the next glass of wine, but what we're talking about today is the dashboard execution, migrations, validations, reporting, and last but certainly not least, the health checks. So what I'd like to do with this time today is change the framing. Let me tell you a story about my work life before and after I used ACE. And so something that looked like was before ACE, a simple dev to prod migration could take a week back and forth because we would have to gather job details, wait on approvals, chase missing documentation, double check standards, and juggle windows at odd hours. Then after all that, I'd have to set an alarm for 2:50 in the morning, babysit a job during the migration, and cross my fingers we didn't blow past the licensing thresholds. Because of my time here at RMT, I've seen at many shops with this exact setup, but once they switched to ACE, the hassle no longer was there. Now with ACE, I start here each morning. So I see how many jobs ran this month. So we can take a look and see exactly how many jobs are run in development and prod, the total run jobs. We also can see whether we're pacing over or under our license execution limit over here on this graph, not only for the total, but also in each development environment and based off of specific months. If today our future migrations will push us into trouble, we would know. All right, so on this particular day, a manager pings me, we need to migrate jobs from dev to prod. The old me would be going, oh, there goes my night, whatever. Sounds like I'll have to make some new plans. But now with ACE, sounds great. Let's get this set up tonight and I can sleep with no worries, no issues for tomorrow. So what I'll do here is make a new request. And what we'll set up is we can connect from the previous environment to the environment we would like to connect to. And so in this instance, we're doing from dev to prod. We can add jobs as we would like. We'll be adding our demo jobs here. And immediately you can see the current versus target differences for these jobs. So we can take a look at what they will look like in the current environment and what they will be doing in the environment they're going to. So this is where I confirm we've got the right objects with the right parameters for the new environment. So we also don't only do jobs, we also have the ability to migrate machines, global variables, calendars, and all those. So what we'll do, and so our internal standard requires documentation for every job. ACE shows me any gaps, like for instance, I can click on the jobs here and see that job 2 doesn't have any documentation. I can edit it here in place, or I can go on over to the job documentation tab here and edit any of the jobs that are available in ACE. So that gives us a little, helps me get through the process of having to figure out documentation and anything along those lines. Next, we'll head on over. And so now I run the validations against our standards. So ACE flags what passes and what fails. And doesn't only flag them, but tells me exactly why. So as we can see here, our demo job failed. So what I would do next is figure out, okay, what is going on here? It's telling me that something's wrong with my machine. So I can do and go and change that, but also during this migration, my manager tells me to double check that our validations are correctly set in ACE. So now I'm going to have to go over to our validations area, go to where the business unit that we're in, and double check that all these validations are correct. So not only can we do on the fly validation policy changes, we can include custom attributes for business specific checks, and then we'll, after this, once we save it, and we're saying, okay, this is good, we're all right with this for our validations, what we'll do is go back to the job and say, okay, why was this an issue? So we can check in our job and edit directly here. There's no need to go to any text editor, IDE to do those code changes. I can just directly edit inside ACE and really quickly fix the issue. So now what I can do is revalidate, and as we can see, all of them have passed. So now I choose how this migration goes live. is it approval based or is it schedule based? If I want to hit a maintenance window, say 3 a.m., I can set a schedule down here and choose that. Now, or I can even send for approval as we will be doing today. Now, there's no reason for me to have to set an alarm. Now I can just set a schedule. All right, now all we have to do after reviewing all of our details here, we can save and submit. So now what we're doing here is pushing this off to whoever the approver is. And for, let's just say that the approver for my migrations is Joe. I'll pretend to be Joe here. And what I will do is greenlight the pending review. And so all I have to do is check everything. All right, everything looks great. Let's submit this on for pending migration. Now, my manager, Don, can come in, review the pending migration, and migrate. And that's right. That was it. That was everything that we needed to do. And so once we're done processing here, that's the whole migration. If I needed to back out, for whatever reason, we got through that whole process, all those steps, and still we're not very comfortable with it, we can always back out of that migration. And so now, let's say we are the next morning. And so I come into the office, and now I'm going to go check to make sure that everything's running well in this new environment after the migration has run. So what I would do is run a new report and then check, all right, let's see, are these jobs, are they all running correctly? Is there any issues? Is there any downtime? What's going on? Looks like everything is great. Everything is perfect. I receive a message from my manager. They want a pulse on the environment. I open reports. I run a change request chargeback. And then I'm able to look at and see, based off of a time frame, what they're looking for. So we can click view report here. And now I'll be able to download and share this report with my manager who was looking for that data. So if for any other reason you needed to do a report between two specific dates, you're more than welcome to do that. It will show you all the data in reference to the change requests. So you can see the change requests based off of the business unit, the number of jobs that were pushed on those change requests, and the percent of the total completion rate of those change requests. We can see it with a little graphic here and in a table. So you're more than welcome to download that and send that off to whoever would need that. So that's how ACE helped me do the real migration. So that was a real migration we just did. We did move it from the dev environment to the production environment. And now I go from sleepless nights to a scheduled, validated, and approved process with a clean workflow through the next day and while being all rested up. So yeah, thank you for your time. If you have any questions about ACE or if you're interested in the product, please reach out to RMT. We'd love to do a demo for you. And I'll swing it back over to you, Bob.
I appreciate you guys coming. We're going to move on to the Q&A session. So Bob Lusheen, Mr. Chris mentioned, will the container run in a VM on Docker, Podman, or can it be deployed in Kubernetes and OpenShift?
The answer is yes. I think all of the above, Docker, Kubernetes, all of it. They're planning on doing all of it. If I had to guess, they're going to start with Kubernetes.
And then he also asked what vaults are already supported.
The vaults today are Semantic Privileged Access Manager, or PAM, and CyberArk.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mike Woods. Thank you, Bob Lusheen. Thank you, Parker. And moreover, thank you all for attending today. I hope you see value in this. You will hear from us in the future. We're going to continue to provide the value to you all so that you continue to want to attend these things. If you have anything else you want to see or hear from us in the future, then please let us know. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you next time.